Now,
Mm.
we had a problem recently with 5 cops getting indicted
Yes.
for supposedly Terry Nichols, all right, Tyre
Tyre
Nichols.
Nichols, yes.
Well, the farcical thing is watching Kamala Imhoff / Harris
Mm.
come, Al Chicken Eating Sharpton come, Ben Crump coming, and everybody's trying to feast off the dead flesh. And what we
Yes.
have is a situation where this family is hollering about their dead baby, but perhaps allegation wise, they put the boy up for adoption, and a white couple in LA adopted him, who sent him back to Memphis to get in touch with his biological family.
Hmm.
Perhaps what happens is he was dating somebody on the job who was the baby mama for one of the cops.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a little animosity there. And then maybe another woman who was the wife of a cop, allegedly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
started dealing with him too. And the two of them were having fun, tried to tell the third cop's wife.
Yikes. Allegedly.
And she
Right.
told her husband, who told his homies, and this had nothing to do with line of duty. This was visit didn't go well the first time, so
Right.
let's go find him and teach him a lesson. And if he hadn't had Crohn's disease, allegedly,
Mm.
he would have lived and nothing would have happened. But this wasn't police work. This was some young men from 22 years old, youth, children to me, up
Right.
to 31, 32 years old, and nobody wanted them supervised because it would be counter to letting them do their thing. And that's not cool. And somebody having the BS idea of we teach use of force not in the classroom, but
Mm.
in the squad car on the job, which is the exact worst place to teach it,
Correct. So
and a
that
lot of scapegoating going on. So
absolutely.
now, is it police thing? No. Is it lawlessness? Yes.
Yes.
Do the cops in question, if the allegations have a substance, reflect what they're supposed to be policing? Yes. Are some of the young black cops who grew up in Memphis scared to patrol where they grew up? Yes.
Mm.
Do we have a black white situation? That's not it, because guess what? Look at this. You can't blame white supremacy when
Mm.
65 to 70% of the cops are black and are from Memphis, when 80% of the command hierarchy is black, where the elected sheriff is a black man, where the appointed chief of police is a black woman, where
Mm.
60% of the criminal court judges are black and female, where 65 to 70% of the jury pool is black. Now, what kind of white supremacy is that? So you
They-
have another deal, but you see clowns are running around talking about, oh, wow, we whoopee. We don't need to deal with ideas. We want to continue to do what they're doing. And of course, it's horrible for anybody trying to teach these
right.
boys how to be these awful men, because that's toxic masculinity. And the bottom line is, it's not guns, it's not gangs. What it is you aren't teaching these boys how to be men. And if
Correct.
you taught them how to be men, you wouldn't have a problem. And by the way, my generation doesn't look at yours or the younger ones as wild and crazy. We just look at you as, oh man, these guys are so passive. They're so
Mm.
delicate. This is kind
Yeah.
of disturbing. Like, and by
Emotional.
the way, music, we aren't mad at you for rap. We're mad at you because you're still stuck on rap. For
Mm.
most of the 20th century, white or black, the music style stayed around 5 to 10 years. Rap's been around since 1978, 79. That's
Hasn't evolved.
45 years. When are you guys going to change to something new?
It's overdue when you think about the marketing behind and how influential it is. And I think that leads me to my next question. As you talked about policing on your campaign for mayor, Um, I know you said you kind of rolled into it, but police reform is one of the top issues that you want to address as mayor of Memphis.
Well, yeah, but you
Mhm.
see, the model is obvious. I know
Right.
people think that the police departments are modeled on the slave catchers. Not really.
Not true.
That
Yeah.
was the South. What happened is they got modeled on Scotland Yard. And so Robert Peel, an English aristocrat, he started Scotland Yard in the 1830s. So the Constitution was ratified 1789, which is 40 some years before. The Bill of Rights came about and got ratified in 1791, 40 years before. And the model of Scotland Yard went to Boston and New York in the late 1830s and 1840s. So we've got a department called police, the establishment of police agencies that are new. They're based on an aristocratic model from England. And
Correct.
what we need to do is flip them over to being on the model of something the US came up with as a reaction to this aristocratic thing about militaries in Europe and in England. See, in America, who's the commander in chief over the military? President.
President.
He's a civilian. The
Mhm.
Secretary of Defense used to be war, civilian.
Mhm.
Secretary of the Army, Navy, etc. Subsecretaries, they're all civilians. So civilians run the uniformed aspect of government. We
Yes.
need the same thing on the city level. So instead of
Mhm.
having these ineffective civilian oversight committees, we have civilians running it. That would be the mayor, the commissioner of police, the director of police, sub-directors, sub-commissioners over homicide, uniform patrol, sex crimes, traffic, you name it,
I agree.
and set up communications staffed and run by civilians, not just through 911, but to extend that, if you have civilians running the communications net for the police department, you can extend the net out into the community. So we have block and community captains. We can enlist
Yep.
the youth who are marginal between being thug and potential leaders and bringing them in so they can become part of the process. They take pride in it and they get stricter and tougher than the adults do. You can hook up the high schools and having student courts under the supervision of some grown judge and start dealing with minor offenses dealt with by the kids themselves, which actually they get harder than the adults do. You can start doing some other things that are out there. You can take the police and put them in areas that right now are called killing zones. So they run
Mm.
precincts down sub precincts in these erstwhile killing zones, and the police and the kids get to knowing each other. Since the majority of the police that are on street duty grew up in the city, you can put
Right.
them to use to, hey, young homie, let me tell you about what's going on. They can stop being so afraid of the people they're supposed to police. And frankly, on that one, I've already told some of them, said, look, I'm going to be your boss. And when I go down there in the hood, you damn well better be right behind me, or otherwise you look for another job. I don't care whether you're scared or
Absolutely.
not. This is what you signed up for. And
Right.
we're going to make it a great unit with a spirit de corps and a lot of high morale. And we're going to make this a select organization, and people are going to fight to get in it. And we'll get
Absolutely.
you paid well. We won't let them snatch your pensions like these low-down scoundrels did a few years ago. Now, Memphis at one time, about 20 years ago, was going in the right direction. 25 years ago, in fact, I'd come into town. I was traveling back and forth between Memphis and Hollywood to do this show. What did I see? Don't I know you? Oh, Judge Brown, how you doing? I was on jury duty and you represented one of my sons years ago. Yeah, well, what are you doing, ladies? They've got a tray of donuts, pastries, cupcakes, and thermoses of coffee, and they've got a little table set up there on the corner. Well, we're waiting on our officers to come by. They've been so nice, we thought we would show our appreciation. So these same people that 10, 15 years ago hated the police are now welcoming them as a part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
The police were doing stuff like refusing to write tickets for minor equipment violations, saying, look, you guys have to get back and forth to the jobs. We know you can't afford this, and we're not going to issue any tickets because you certainly can't afford to pay $350 in court cost and a $100 fine, or a $25 fine and $400 court costs. It'll just put you behind the eight ball. So, of course, the city council said, oh, we need the money. You guys have to go write tickets or we won't give you your promised raise and your benefits. So it got real nasty, and they started setting up roadblocks and writing equipment violations, but they apologized and say, we don't want to be here. You know what's going on. And they pass out Xeroxes of the newspaper articles where the city council, which was majority black, was saying if the majority black police department doesn't start busting you and writing tickets, we're going to cut their money off. So, yeah, they got to feed their families too. So stuff runs downhill. But, that's the wrong kind of thing to do. And by the way, that created another scandal. Some black member of the city council started hollering about, who is this that's getting 10% for collecting these fines and costs? Turned out to be the only black man who had a contract with the city. He was getting 10% on the dollar from the clerk's office. It wasn't much. He was getting 10% on the dollar from the clerk's office for collecting past due fines and costs. Well, he was no pushover, and he raised hell and developed that there were 20 entities getting paid a percentage for collecting for past due fines and costs. He was the only black entity. He got 10%, and all the rest got 20. So you see, they wanted him run out of business because he turned out to be the most effective, and the other ones wanted that money, that 20%. And dude was allegedly getting a little kickback, the one that started all the hell. So that's the kind of thing that we have.